Hello, Anja.
Hi, Stephen. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again, and welcome to our little series we're running called From a Distance.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me here at your series.
You are so welcome. And you are in Leipzig, I understand.
Yes, I am in our beautiful city of Leipzig. Spring is arriving at the moment, and so. Yeah.
And can I, for those out there who are not familiar with Calmus, although I can't imagine there are many people who haven't heard of Calmus yet, you are based in Leipzig.
Yes, that's true. So the group was founded in Leipzig, and it always had here his home base. So it's our home base here. We rehearse here, and travel from here to all our concerts.
And I understand this room you are in, this kind of special room, is a Calmus.
That's our rehearsal space, our wonderful rehearsal space. Actually, at the moment, we can't use it too often because it's not a big church. So with all the distance singing, it's difficult for us. So we only use it very rarely when we are able to be tested before.
Well, I'm really impressed. For many years, when I was rehearsing with the King Singers, we never had anything as elegant or as fabulous as our own dedicated rehearsal. We were always using people's houses, and especially friends who lived in London, we'd use their living rooms to rehearse. So we had nothing as glamorous as a rehearsal space, but that's very impressive.
Actually, many years when we all were studying at the university or at the music university, we always practiced there. And when we finished our studies, we needed to find a good room for us. And we were really lucky to get this wonderful space. It's in a big villa, so in a very nice house, and we love it.
Very, very nice. We always rehearsed in terrible acoustics, in living rooms with lots of cushions and carpets, and we always used to say, especially after we'd had a holiday and we came back to sing together, especially in September after the long summer break, we used to take 6 weeks, no concerts, and we used to come back in September and sing in somebody's living room, and it felt so terrible. There's no sound help. It was just this dry, horrible, like your worst nightmare of a concert acoustic. But if we always knew if we could sound half decent in this living room scenario, when we went to a concert hall a few days later, we would be okay.
That's exactly what we are always talking about. So that's it's the acoustic is okay here, but it's good not to have a too good acoustic when rehearsing.
Anja, tell us a little bit about the early days of Calmus. I've been kind of doing a little bit of research about the history, and one thing I didn't realize was how the actual name came about. I knew roughly about who had met and who had become friends and sung and where they'd come from, but just tell us about that early history of Calmus.
Calmus was founded by former members of the St. Thomas Boys Choir. So there was a group of people that wanted to continue making music after finishing school. And so that was Ludwig Böhme, our baritone, who is still in the group, so the last remaining founding member. And Sebastian Krause, he was the countertenor. He left the group 2.5 years ago. Then there was Martin Latke, tenor. And we had Markus Arnold, also a baritone, and Ulrich Bartel, he was the bass. And this was in 1999. And their initials are forming the name Calmus. So but there's a C in front of. So I think the L is Ludwig, M must be Markus.
Martin.
Martin is M. That's true. The A is Arnold. So that's the last name. Markus Arnold is the A. S is Sebastian. U is Ulrich, and then the C in front. But later we found out that Calmus is the center of the word vocal music. If you look at this word vocal music, it's right in the center. So that's
how wonderful. That came later.
Yeah, that came later, and that's
It
a
was meant
much
to be.
much nicer explanation than
I
only the
really
initials.
I love that. That's much more interesting than some vocal group names. So the early group were all male.
Yes, it was
They
an
came
all
from
male.
that very famous tradition, the St.
Thomas
Thomas
Choir,
choir, which is, also was home to our good friends Amarcord.
Yes, exactly.
Who we all know very well. And tell me, how does a female soprano come across this group, and how did they let you in?
Actually, so they were looking for a higher voice,
Right.
and they couldn't find a countertenor in Leipzig that could be higher than Sebastian. And there was a choir in Leipzig. It's called Amici Musicae, and that was a choir that was founded also from former members of the St. Thomas Boys Choir and from former members of another children's choir in Leipzig, where a lot of young women sang in the Gewandhaus choir. And so they formed a choir, and I was in this choir, and Ludwig was in this choir too. And one day I had a little solo in a program. I think it was a Christmas program. I sang a little solo, and he heard my voice, and he was thinking, I can imagine that this could fit, because my voice is fits quite good to a countertenor voice. At that time, I was not so much educated already with singing, so I had not so many singing lessons, and I hadn't started to use vibrato much, so it was quite pure sound, and that's why Ludwig thought we could try make a rehearsal and let's see how this works. And he one day he called me and asked me if we could meet, if we could have a beer or have a drink together. And I thought, he has a girlfriend. Why does he want to have a drink with me? And we went to a little bar. Yeah, and then he told me and asked me if I could maybe imagine to sing with only men in a little group. And I heard of Calmus at that time, but they hadn't done much yet. So it was only 2 years after they had founded the group. And so I said, let's try. Yeah, I'm open for it. And then we made a rehearsal, and our first piece was Rheinberger Abendlied. And we started singing, and it was from the first chords, it felt like magic. It was really, it came together from the first chord. So, and
amazing.
And enjoyed so much singing next to Sebastian. So we had a good connection from the first moment.
And what an amazing piece that is.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, and we also rehearsed in this first rehearsal a piece from the King Singers. Penny Lane.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh nice. Well, so the original group were 5 people, 5 men.
Yes, were 5 people.
And I read that a lot of their repertoire at that time was kind of traditional male voice repertoire.
Yes.
Specifically kind of German male voice repertoire, and some lighter music from the comedian harmonists. Which is very popular in Germany, and actually it's popular worldwide, and certainly in the King Singers we used to sing a lot of comedian harmonists. In fact, what was difficult in our group, our arrangements of comedian harmonist songs were arrangements of the songs rather than arrangements as the comedian harmonist would do them, because of course we have these high falsettos, almost soprano range. So there were 6 of you, and that went down to 5. When did that happen?
There was in the first years there were some changes though. So the one baritone left the group and another tenor came forward. So we had then two tenors. Then a tenor left and another countertenor came. So there were really some changes. And then David, our second countertenor, said he wanted to leave the group because he wanted to do more solo things. So that was, he already told us that he wanted to do solo when he joined the group. So it was it was not such a big surprise for us that he wouldn't stay so long. But when he was leaving the group and we were looking for a countertenor, for a second countertenor, it was difficult to find someone that really fitted in the group. It was in Germany, we don't have so many countertenors actually. I know that in England you have a lot of you have just such a big tradition also of countertenors. So it's not so common here in Germany. So we just couldn't find the right person. And then we said, if we can't have the right person, then let's try to do 5-part. And I think it was a great decision. I think a little choir starts at 6 people. So 5 it feels more like an ensemble. Starting with 6, it's getting bigger and bigger, and it's more a choir sound now. So
I was chatting recently with Imogen Parry from the Swingles about this idea of having a set number in your group, which then, because of circumstances, goes down. And the Swingles went down from 8 singers to 7 singers. And of course, there was the immediate economic advantage of a touring group, and they were established touring group at that time. But it also opened up a certain amount of clarity into their sound. I mean, I know from King Singer's arrangements that actually, when you take out double notes, things are rarely in 6 parts, you know, and if they are, it's pretty crowded in there when you have 6 parts, and you do get this kind of close harmony. Yes, there are certain pieces you just can't sing because there's not enough parts, you know, classical repertoire that we love. And yes, it'd be lovely if every group could do every piece of music, including 8-part pieces. But actually going from 6 to 5 is not as drastic as it sounds, and it probably benefited the sound and made people more responsible for their sound.
Yeah, I definitely think so. But I sometimes also miss singing some pieces that are 6-part. But you can't have everything. So
well, Anja, every group has a kind of a personality voice. And I know for many years that the sound on top of the King Singers had David Hurley sat there for many years, and it became the kind of unique, you can't say the unique selling point, but the unique identification. You hear this sound, you don't hear the voices in between or at the bottom even, although I like to think sometimes that they did think about the bottom of the group, but actually you hear the top voice. And it's so important because a group is successful, believable, authentic by how good that top voice is. And without embarrassing you too much, I remember the first time we met, and I think it was in Schleswig-Holstein.
Yes, Lübeck,
we were in Lübeck, and we were running one of the Meisterkurs, the master classes, and there are times, Anja, where you hear a group in their early-ish days. They might have had concerts, but they're certainly not full-time touring group, and you know that the group is going to go somewhere. You know that it's going to be successful. You know that it's got a huge chance of being able to make a living making concerts, touring around the world. And I remember listening and working with your group and being so impressed. I mean, you also have the most beautiful voice, and you alluded a little bit before to this purity, and there is a bell-like purity to your voice, which which sits so beautifully on the top of the group. And I remember your very first album. I think it was your first album. And I can't even remember. I looked down your discography on your website yesterday, and I was just trying to see if I recognized it. I think I've still got it here somewhere. I remember it being a kind of an orange or deep red, but it folded out. And it had some classical music, I think some folk songs on it as well.
So that was our second album, actually. That's Farbtöne. Yeah, I think you remember this one. That one,
So beautiful. But I just wanted to talk about a little bit about, what makes. I know that sitting on the top of the group, of a vocal group, and also sitting at the bottom of the group are quite stressful positions. One has to support the rest of the group, as your bass probably complains all the time. But you have to delicately sit on top and really are the calling card for the group sound. If you're not in good voice, if you're having a bad day, it can affect everything, can't it? How do you cope with that stress? What do you do? Do you think about it?
No, and actually, I'm really lucky because it's very rarely that I'm not able to sing. So also when I'm quite ill and have a bad cold, most of the time people can't hear it. So it's just inside me, and so I feel it, and but they can't see it. So and then it's fine. Yeah. So. I really try not to think about that. Yeah, and that works very good. Yeah, and also I have to say, if you are ill, if you are not feeling good, the others can support you, and that's really a great thing in such a small group. And that's a big difference between singing in a group and being a soloist. If you sing in a group, you always have the support from the others, and if you have a bad day, they can push you. One day, at one concert, I had a real big problem. It was about 2 years ago. We had a concert in Südtirol, and in the rehearsal, I thought, today something's, I don't know. I didn't know what happened actually. So I could sing, but it felt weird. So and then we went on stage and started singing the concert, and my voice was almost gone. So it was almost not there, but I sang the whole concert. So they gave me so much support, and people liked it, and we sold a lot of CDs. So it can't have been that bad, yeah. So I think everybody thought everything was okay, but for me it was horrible. So yeah, but the support from the others made it possible.
You are very much like David Hurley in that respect. I can't remember. I can remember one time he had difficulties vocally on stage, and I think we were in a place. I think we were in Colorado, in a place called Boulder, which is on a high elevation, and the little theater there. I think it's so high that in the wings of the little theater they have oxygen.
Oh wow!
Because they have small dance companies coming through, and they have to go and just take a little bit of oxygen. And it's the sort of place, because I know you told the States where if it's your first concert of a tour, you just can't believe you can't get through the phrases. So you take a breath, and whereas you normally get from A to B, you're not even getting halfway along. And I remember in that concert, in the rehearsal, he had lots of difficulties. His voice clouded over. It wasn't sore, but he was such a consummate professional. He had such an amazing natural technique and beautiful voice, like you, that he was able to just gently sit on top of our sound and not show anything in the face.
Yeah.
And I think at the end, somebody like Simon Carrington, because Simon Carrington was in the group, and he said, he made an announcement. We'll only be doing one encore tonight. One of us is kind of suffering, and then somebody came after the concert, came to me after the concert and said, "Oh yeah, yeah, we could tell that one of you was suffering. Yeah, poor Simon, his voice was, and so they thought it was because Simon had said it. It was him who was suffering, and nobody looked at David. So it is interesting, isn't it? That group dynamic. That even though you might have to sing to a big audience in a big concert hall, being part of a group sound is completely different. I don't think people realize how difficult it is to go from ensemble singer one day to soloist the next day. They think if you can sing, it doesn't matter, but it's a huge difference. But I know that you have a success in both these areas. Tell us about how you move from solo to back to Calmus sound.
Yeah, I know it's a huge difference, but I can't explain why. But for me, it's very easy to make this transition. So I imagine it's because I first made ensemble singing very much and trained my voice in ensemble singing and had my technique there. And then I studied a solo voice. And so when I went to my voice lessons at the university, I always left Calmus behind. So just that's the one thing, and that's the other thing. So and I just can make this switch easy, and I think it's because my ensemble technique was the first that I established, and
and you studied in so ensemble. You were singing with Calmus, but also studying at the
conservatory in. When I started singing with Calmus, I studied something completely different. I studied at the university in Leipzig. I studied politics and cultural science and journalism. So that should have been my first way. And then when I joined Calmus, 2 years later, I realized that it's difficult with all the touring, because very, very early we started touring a lot. We won a competition where we had 50 concerts the next season. So that was one of the prizes that we won there to have.
Wow! Which competition was that? Where was that?
That was called the Deutsche Musikwettbewerb. So German music competition. It's from this big German organization, Deutscher Musikrat. They make this competition every year, and they have a series. It's called Bundesauswahl Konzerte junger Künstler, so concerts for young artists. And so there are a lot of presenters that book the people that win this series. So and we were lucky because almost all the presenters booked us. So they have they can book different people, but we were lucky, and we had about 50 concerts the next season. So, and then I realized, I can't really make good studies I can't do a real, practicum, practical work in a newspaper, for example, because I didn't have the time to do this really good. So, and then I thought, it was 2003, I thought, maybe I could try to study vocal performance. When I finished school, I thought that I was not good enough to become a singer. And I had not so much singing lessons at that time. I always loved singing and wanted to be a singer, but maybe it was not the right teacher at the moment. So my success or my improvements were not so much.
Did you come from a musical family? Was there a lot of music in your home growing up?
There was a lot of music, but just from my brother and me, because my parents have no clue about music. They like music, but they don't play instruments or do something like that. But they realized very early that my brother and me, that we are really into music, and my brother plays the violin very good, and he has perfect pitch, and And they realized that I really love to sing, so I started singing in the choir at the age of 6.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was singing all the time, and then I changed the teacher when I was about 20 or something like that. And my new teacher really made a lot brought everything out of my voice that I needed. And so then I thought I was maybe ready to begin a study at the conservatory in Leipzig. So that was the way.
That's an interesting route.
Yeah.
So, just looking at Calmus, when the group starts, any group starts, they sing what they love, they sing what is familiar, they sing what they've heard or they know, or they see other groups singing, and finding your own style or your kind of uniqueness is always difficult with a young group. I know that you those early days of your time in the group, one thing that really featured a lot was, as well as Renaissance music and madrigals and sacred music, but there was quite a big emphasis on the lovely repertoire of German folk song. Mm-hmm. And having been somebody who's had the opportunity to immerse myself now and again in German folk song, it's a beautiful history. We don't have the same feeling as musicians to our history, really. Orchestrally we do, and people like Vaughan Williams, of course, set fantastic settings of folk as orchestral pieces. But there is a real love, and I know that from singing it to Germans, doing concerts and singing German folk. They love their folk culture. Tell us a little bit about that.
I think you remember the Vogelhochzeit, what we sang at the masterclass in Lübeck, yeah.
The Vogelhochzeit, that's right.
Yeah.
And that album I was talking about had that piece.
Yes. The arranger, Fredo Jung, he was one that, he is also a little bit responsible for that we sing some kind of, that we like to put an emphasis on repertoire like this, because he brought this music into our group and made great arrangements. Yeah. Also other folk songs. We also some years later we did a real folk album with there was a newspaper, not a newspaper. How to say? They made the German word Umfrage. You know what I mean?
Okay. No, not really.
They made a poll.
Okay.
Right? They asked people, what is your favorite folk song? So and then we made a recording with the most famous and the top 10 folk songs people liked. So, and then we also asked a lot of arrangers to arrange these folk songs for us. And yeah, it's the music we really love to sing, because also for us important is the German language. German is our mother tongue, and that's where we can express, where we can really express in the right way the words and everything. And I think that's why we really love to make German music, and especially these folk songs with the also with melodies that touch your heart.
Yeah.
I really like this. You just feel the emotions, the very old emotions that all people before felt. So that's
Yeah.
really, I really like to make this emotional music. And
You talked about influence of arrangers on suggesting repertoire or influencing which avenues you go down a little bit more, but arrangers for groups like Calmus, the King Singers, Swingles, all these groups, the arrangements are kind of make and break, really, aren't they? They can be your number one calling card in terms of beauty and texture, or they can be incredibly athletic and a little bit party pieces, like the Vogel Hochzeits you mentioned, but they also can make or break, can't they? And I've sung terrible arrangements, and they we've paid for arrangements, and they haven't been performed more than once. And sometimes arrangements have been given to us humbly, and they are suddenly become part of your daily repertoire. Tell me about Ludwig's role in the group, because I know that he is quite a prolific writer in his own right.
Yes, he is. Not only that. So, of course, he's the last founding member. So he knows Calmus from the beginning and has formed the group all the time.
Yeah.
And of course, that makes that's very important for the group. And and as he knows the group so well, he's also very good in making arrangements for the group. So arrangements that really fit to the people that sing them, so that you can bring out the strength parts of the voices. So he really knows who can sing what part the best. So that's really good. And he is also often looking for repertoire for the group. So he's the person in Calmus that takes care of all the musical things. He brings the new repertoire, and so we others also come with new repertoire, but he's the one that collects it and to make the programs and
And I always remember back in Lübeck, he was an artistic driving force, very knowledgeable, and
yes, definitely.
It's interesting because a lot of groups now. I was talking to Essie from Rayaton, and they groups now. The tradition is to have skillful writers and musicians, and not just arrangers, but writers of songs within the group. And when I think back to the early days of the King Singers, very early days, yes, the group, certain people in the group did the odd arrangement in that very early lineup of the King Singers, back in the 70s. I think the group was so busy doing all its little things and getting well known and doing TV and all this sort of thing, that arrangements came their way because people who wrote music for light music shows on TV would arrange songs for the group. And I remember two arrangers who became connected to the group very early on. One was called Darrell Runswick, and the other one was called Gordon Langford. Gordon Langford wrote originally, it was a brass band arranger. And for some reason, he got linked up with the King Singers to arrange some pieces, I think, as history goes, for a TV show or something. And they had to learn these pieces very quickly and sing them. But because he had this knowledge of how brass band voicing worked, the great English brass band tradition from coal mining and steel works or whatever, they had their little brass bands. His style translated to the 6 male voices, and if you were going to be able to sing his arrangements with any success, you had to sing them in a certain way. And it's often said that he was probably more instrumental than any of the people in the group themselves, in forming that sound that became kind of King Singer sound in the early 70s right through, because you had to approach it instrumentally. You had to approach it a euphonium or a tenor horn or a cornet. You had to play the same instrument.
Yeah.
The same type of instrument.
Yeah.
And it kind of there wasn't a lot of vocal groups around at that time, but they tend to be ensembles of 4 soloists who were never quite getting the blend or getting the match of color. So it's interesting how and then of course later people like Bob Chilcott, Philip Lawson became kind of arrangers in their own right, quite giving the group a kind of an identity from within the group. Yeah. So it's lovely to hear that Ludwig's still going strong with his music ideas and create, and that's such an important continuation.
Definitely, and we are singing. He is always arranging things for us, and I think it's really important for a group to have their own music, to have their own arrangements, just to have their own style. So and there are some arrangers outside of Calmus that are arranging for Calmus that are also very important for our identity. For example, Juan Garcia. He has written a lot of arrangements now for us. So it's more the lighter stuff. So he comes from the pop side, and he has done a lot of great arrangements for us. But it's arranged. Their arrangements are possible for a classical group like us to sing, and that's really great. So it's not written. He really knows that we are a classical group, and he can adjust to that, and that's really great. Yeah. Or there's a great jazz musician called Harald Banter. He also wrote a lot of great stuff for us, and it's fantastic to have these people that they know the group and just write for the voices, and they know how they want it to sound. So that it's just perfect.
You were talking about the turnover of your group and how many people have over the years have come and gone, and I know you've been there for quite a long time now. You must be your 20th year this year, isn't it?
Yes.
Tell me though, because you've managed to also during that time to start family, and I notice. I noticed from Wikipedia is fantastic at telling us lots of information. That I noticed from Wikipedia that there was another soprano who stepped in from time to time. Tell us about those two times when that happened.
So 2006, we had this tenor change. Martin left the group, and Tobias came into the group, and so I met my husband then, and some years later, 2010, our daughter was born, Emma, and I take a first break. And the first break was not so long. It was just half a year. And we had a great soprano from Dresden, Dorothea. She stepped in, and she did a really good job. It was fantastic. And also for me, being at home with the baby, to know that it works without me. That was really good for me to know, and it was, but it was a quite short break. It was just half a year, and then I joined the group again, and we took the baby with us all the time. So,
wow, that must have been hard work.
Yes, our daughter was frequent traveler in her first year. We traveled to US. We had a long US tour, and to Ireland, also a long Ireland tour. It was. We had a lot of concerts in this.
Did you take a nanny? Did you take an au pair? How did that work?
That worked with good grandparents. So
yes.
Yeah. So my mother and Tobias' mother, they were changing all the time. So one of them was always with us. So without it wouldn't have worked. Yeah. And when Emma became older and started walking, we didn't want to force her in a seat on the plane for 10-hour flights or something like that. So we decided to let her stay at home with the grandparents then.
Yeah.
And it was okay for her. So she really loved also being with the grandparents all the time. Yes, and then the next baby was years later, in 2016. I gave birth to our son, Ferdinand, but for the second time, I thought it would be better to have a bigger break, because with one child that you could take with you on tour in the first year, it's okay to make that. But if you have two children, I couldn't imagine being on tour with a little baby and a 6-year-old. So that was was too much for me. So I decided to make a bigger break, and I was away from the group for, I think, 14 months.
Yeah.
So and then that's where Isabel Schicketanz took over. She is also a Dresden soprano, and she's making now a good solo career. So, and she did a fantastic job. That was a year she had my position in Calmus 2017, and that was this Luther year where this big celebration was, and there were so many concerts. So I think it was the season where Calmus had the most of concerts. So it was, she really had to do a lot. And for me, it was being at home with two children without husband. So because he was away all the time, actually.
Wow.
And so it was also good for our children that I was not in the group for this year, because it would have been too much.
Well, Anja, coming from an all-male group perspective, I mean, we often had to leave home when our children had just been born, or they were about to be born. Or I remember in Paul Phoenix's case, we were in Leipzig for the Bach. The Bach Fest, the big Bach Jubiläum, and in the marketplace. And his son was born that night.
Oh wow!
We were backstage, and he had the news, and I remember that being very very difficult. And I know that you know, as a man traveling with children left at home, you miss a lot of their upbringing, and a lot of their important times, their first words, their first steps, all those kind of important times, and one's always thought of it as being a sacrifice. I've never thought of it from a mum's perspective of having to leave the children with the grandparents. And it almost sounds a little bit like we've been having lots of over the last year, lots of interesting programs on our British TV about the royal family, and how they used to go on their long 6-month tours and leave the children at home to be brought up by somebody else, and how difficult, and how it shaped them. But are the children musical? Have they thrived with music around them?
Yeah. So our son, he's now 4 years old. He literally sings all the time. So there are days when he sings from morning to evening, one song all the time, but she just don't matter what he's doing. If he's playing something, he's always singing. So I guess that could be coming something.
And the Thomas Choir is still going very strong. The whole tradition, the whole Bach tradition there in Leipzig is incredibly well. It's world famous, but maybe he will end up there.
Maybe we'll see. So he still has some years to see. And our daughter, she sings also very. She loves to sing. She sings in the Gewandhaus children's choir. So that's also. So at the moment they don't have so much to sing, but usually she sings.
So in 2019, a couple of years ago, Calmus had its 20th anniversary. Which is wow. When I read that, suddenly the years seem to have just rushed by, and it's an amazing achievement. 20 years doing anything, never mind making music and managing to survive by making music and traveling around the world. It's when I joined the Kingsingers in 1987, the following, well, a few months after I joined, it was 1988, and it was the 20th anniversary. So I joined a group that was already 20 years old when I joined it, and it's now been around for a long time. But tell us some of the special things that happened in that year, because I saw a beautiful video, very special concert.
Also für mich ist Calmus Stimmkultur vom Feinsten. Ex-Thomaner, die perfekt ihr Handwerk beherrschen, das alles geadelt von einer wunderbaren Sopranstimme oben drüber und einer Repertoirebreite, die von Renaissance-Musik bis in die Gegenwart reicht. Ich habe schon viele, viele Konzerte von Calmus erlebt. Ich bin selten ohne Gänsehaut rausgegangen. Also kurzum, wer auf richtig feinen Chorklang steht. 5 Solisten, die zu einem Instrument verschmelzen und dabei man eine ganz reichhaltige musikalische Entdeckungsreise machen will, von Josquin bis hin zu den Beatles, der sollte zu Calmus gehen.
Bound to get you, and then I suddenly see you. Bound to get you, and then I tell you that I need you every single day of my life. Got to get you into my life. Into my life. I've got to get you into my life. I've got to get you.
It was, so we did a big concert in the St. Thomas Church, because the St. Thomas Church in Leipzig is the place where everything started, actually, and where Calmus is at home. And that's why we decided to make a big concert there. And we invited friends from all over the world, and also some presenters that we were working with for a long time. And so a lot of people we really are strong connected with came to this concert, and we sang a program. It was an all sacred program, and it was just this Leipzig music from Leipzig, from composers that lived and worked here, music that was partly especially written for our group. Also other Bach things, for example, that were of course not written for our group, but that Bach is a very, very important point for us. So we needed to sing something from Bach. Yeah, and
I heard a little snippet of Bist du bei mir.
Yeah,
in an arrangement that I didn't know. Where did that? It's very beautiful. There's just a little snippet in there, and it's such a beautiful sound.
Yeah, that was the encore. Bist du bei mir?
Oh, so gorgeous.
Yeah, and I think Sebastian, our former countertenor, he made the arrangement. And it was him or Ludwig. I'm not quite sure, but I think it was Sebastian. Yeah.
What really strikes me of this, and it's a kind of 5-minute compilation of people's adoration of what you've achieved, professionals saying what they like about you, members of the public, different styles of music, people arriving at the concert until the very end, and it's actually a very moving 5 minutes. I myself have been through quite a few jubileums concerts, anniversary concerts, and you've got to create something special for an anniversary concert. You know, I remember that 20th year was all a little bit of a it was a little bit dizzy, because suddenly I joined a group that was 20 years old, and then 5 years later I was in a group that was 25 years old, and but 2 of the original members were about to leave at the end of the anniversary concert, and then we had 2 new people coming in, and then suddenly we were 30 years old, and, you know, it kept going, and then we were 35, then we were 40. I don't think people appreciate how exhausting those years are. But the adrenaline keeps you going. Yes, the creative spirit creates something special for the evening, but the adrenaline gets you through the year in these very busy years.
Yeah.
But they're also incredibly emotional because, no doubt, we have family there, close friends, as you say, people who have championed our success. Everybody, we know the whole audience in a way.
Yeah, everywhere you look, you see people you know.
Yeah.
And great to see, but it's some pressure. So it puts some pressure on you. But it was the whole day was great. So after this concert, we also had a big celebration party at the place nearby the church. It was just fantastic. It was for hours. We were just talking and to the people, and it was such a great evening. And I won't forget it. Yeah,
it's a wonderful place to sing. I just had an email today from Amercourt. Everything is delayed in these times, and the first glimmers of perhaps their festival in May might happen. And for a number of years now, I've been going to do a workshop with the finalists. So they just wrote today and said, have I had my vaccine yet? Will I be traveling in May? Would I still like to come? So I said, yes, I will. I can't wait to go. But it's a very special place, Leipzig. It's been very dear in my heart. One of my final concerts was in the Gewandhaus in Leipzig. And I've heard many concerts in Thomaskirche. So it's very, very special. So we can't chat without chatting a little bit about the impact of the last year on music, on our lives, on our careers. Everything seems to be upside down, on hold. It's hard to think where things are going. But you've been quite creative. Just talked a little bit about Bach at home.
Yeah. Well, when the first lockdown came, so that's already 1 year ago. We're talking about March 2020.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable that it's already a year that we are in this situation. And
yes,
I remember when this situation was new to us, we thought, it's for 1 or 2 months, and then everything is good again. So. But we thought we shouldn't stop making music now. If we are not able to perform in front of a live audience, we should bring music to them in a different way. And so our first concert that was cancelled would have been a folk songs concert actually, and we thought, well, we do it on the same day and on the same time. We just do it in our rehearsal space. So we did an online concert. It was last minute organized. So it was just because it was cancelled 1 day before, I think, the concert. So we decided, let's just do it here. And it was our folk songs program. We did it here in this rehearsal space. And then the real lockdown came, and 2 weeks later we thought, well, we don't know how long it will take. Let's do something in St. Thomas Church before everybody has to stay at home. And so we just made a recording of Bach music, and I think it was actually a lot of repertoire we did in our anniversary concert, in our 20 years anniversary concert that we then did in this concert. So we had the same camera guy that was making the video for the 20th anniversary. He also made alone the recording from the St. Thomas Church. So he had 5 or 6 cameras and doing everything on his own. And we just made, and we had a good support. We have our engineer, the sound engineer that was recording with us the Farbtöne, for example, the Farbtöne CD that you know, our first CDs. He's also a good friend of our group still, and we asked him also very on the last minute if we can have if he can help us with his technical equipment, and he just said, yes, sure, I come and I do everything, and I really love to help you. And so he came to the church and did everything. So it was great just to record this. And we sang at the Bach grave. We sang a whole concert. And when we sang the last piece, I remember the last chord, and then it finished, and we thought, wow, we don't know when we will be able to sing again together in this lineup, because we split up. And the next day, the lockdown started, so we were not able to meet and to rehearse or to sing concerts in front of an audience. It was just an uncertain situation, and it was really moving.
It's really good to hear that, because I know that a lot of groups, musicians in general, as well as all the a cappella groups around the world, have tried to keep relevant and active during lockdown. And sometimes we talked about how wonderful it is to have an anniversary concert with everybody in the audience who is part of our lives, musical lives over many years, and then suddenly to do concerts or that are meant for digital broadcast where there's no interaction with audience. But it's so lovely to hear that there was a rush to get this done, and to the kind of I didn't realize you were around Bach's grave. That's very that's really, really beautiful. We will put a link to the whole of that concert, because it is really lovely, and starts with one of my Heinrich Schütz piece right at the beginning.
Yes.
Which is we used to sing quite a lot of his music, and it's so beautiful. And Bach at home. And I said right at the beginning, back. A lot of people in England, like, instead of Bach, they say back or batch. And I thought it was a play on words, a bit like a Calmus being vocal music, you know. I thought there was a special, but back at home, and you are really kind of back at home with that. But Bach at home, that's really lovely. You are in the middle of a change at the moment in membership.
Yes, that's true.
Tell us how that works and what the process is.
Yeah, actually, 2 weeks ago, we had our first auditions. So we had a lot of people here with us. Everybody was tested all the time, so we could sing together and don't have this very big distances between us, because if you want to look for a member, if you want to find a member that fits into a group, you need to sing as a group. And so but we are very hopeful that we find the right person. We decided who comes in the second round. So we are now at stage part 2 of our auditions. So we in 2 weeks we will have the final auditions, where we make the second check. And we will see. And it's very it's this time it's something special because I don't know if you know that. So it's the countertenor position that is open.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and we decided that we not only look for countertenor but also for female alto. So probably there will be a second woman joining the group or a countertenor. We don't know yet, so it's still both is possible. Yeah, that's very.
I was going to ask you a little bit. Well, we could talk all day about these kind of philosophies and how things work and how voices go together. But I always remember what a difficult job it is for a male alto who is just underneath the soprano and above a male tenor to make the right sound to bind the voices. It's really quite difficult. And in these kind of modern times, wherein you probably heard that here in England, our cathedrals, which used to be all male, we moved to having not just boy choir in front of the men choir. We also have girls choir, so they share some of the, especially in the busy cathedrals. But also in more recent years, we have now female altos in cathedrals. So here in Gloucester, there's quite a famous cathedral choir here in Gloucester Cathedral, and not only do they have two altos wwho are ladies who do a job share. So it's very modern. Not only but they actually share the lay clerkship, it's called. They share it. So exciting times. We always used to say that changes provide a momentum, provide a hope, a silver lining to whatever's going on, because change is always difficult. But change will bring a new momentum to the group, and things are starting to unlock slowly. So it will be all the best for this year, because things will start to happen, but it's just difficult to know when, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So so actually, it's not the worst time to have a change now, because you have time. You just have time to find the right person. There's no pressure to find it in today and to sing tomorrow the next concert and to fit in very, very soon. So we have time to create a sound together and to find, to see how things work. That's one positive side of this time. There are not so many positive sides, but this is a positive thing. Yeah.
Before we end, I know a piece which we will feature is a piece that's been with you for many years, and I hope you'll tell us a little bit about it. It's kind of let's say it's from the lighter, more crazier side of Calmus repertoire. You span this huge breadth of repertoire, from the sublime to the ridiculous, really. But here's a bit of the ridiculous in Bongo Bongo. I can't even say it without smiling. Tell us a little bit about Bongo Bongo.
Bongo Bong, that's...
Oh, Bongo Bong.
Bongo Bong, yeah.
Was king of the mambo, Papa was king of the
It's a song, I think we sang it more than 100 times. Yeah, we sang it so often. So it's a pop song, a French pop song actually. It's a French singer-songwriter. It's maybe it's 15 years ago that it was a hit. It was in Germany. It was a hit. You don't know it?
I don't think we had it.
Manu Chao is the singer-songwriter.
No, not many things get across the English Channel, especially these days.
Yeah, but that was really some years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so but that was really a huge success in Germany, this song. And Sebastian, our countertenor at that time, loved the song, and he wanted to make an arrangement of it. And so he arranged it He himself made the leading voice, so he sang in the baritone part actually. So it was not everything in head voice, but also chest voice parts. So it's a piece that is very connected with him. So
and he was a wonderful character. I remember meeting him for the first time. What a generous spirit he was.
Yeah, definitely. And he has this kind of humor. This, I can't say it's ironic things inside of him, and so he has a very good sense of humor, and he loved to bring that out in pieces like that. He really loved to sing something like that on stage. And when he left the group, we stopped singing this song, for example, because it was so much connected with him. It was we couldn't imagine singing it with someone else than him, because it was his song, you have to say. So, and as we are now at the moment only 4 people, and if we have something to do, we ask our former members to join us, and we asked him to make a concert with us in Hamburg at the Elbphilharmonie, and we sang this piece, and I think he loved it very much to be back with us on stage and sing a song he's so much loved.
Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, well, that'll be good. This Elbphilharmonie is relatively new. In Hamburg.
It's 5 years ago or so that it was opened. Yeah, it's a great space. It's a really great space. So this was in the small hall.
Kammermusiksaal.
Yes, but I think the Kammermusiksaal is better for singers. So the big hall is. I've also sung in the big hall but it's you feel very lonely there.
I remember them announcing that they were going to build this concert hall, and it was much needed because the Musikhalle was the place.
Leishalle,
it wasn't the greatest acoustic. It was, but you almost needed something a little bit more sophisticated for chamber music. Well, it's been great chatting. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It was fun.
It's great, and here's to the next 20 years. And please send my love and best wishes to the other guys, and especially if you see Sebastian in your journeyings along the way. And good luck with the changeover. And,
thank you so much.
How exciting that will be.
Yeah, and I really hope that we can meet in person. Maybe if you come in May, if you come to Leipzig, if the festival can take place, we cross our fingers that it can take place.
I think it's early May. I think they're hoping to try and do it. They're hoping to try and do the competition.
Yeah.
So we shall see. And I'm just waiting for them to say yes, it's going ahead. And it's great to see you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.